specifically just talking about one missing piece, which is the meeting with the Pacific Island leaders. The strategic goal for that meeting was to deter those countries to establish closer security ties with China. So how will you achieve that goal now that the leaders are disappointed that the president's not coming?
I would say that I believe that the leaders of the Pacific Island have longer memories than the question that you pose implies. The president hosted them not years ago, but months ago, less than a year ago, at the White House in a first of its kind summit of Pacific Island leaders at the White House last September, where we set out a roadmap for cooperation in the Pacific that we are delivering on. New embassies, new Peace Corps volunteers, new investments in security, new investments in humanitarian relief, in climate, and that's all flowing now just in the months that have followed. So from our perspective, we see a demand signal for the United States only growing among the Pacific Islands, and we see those leaders eager to ensure that we continue the momentum that we built. The stop at PNG would have helped that, there's no doubt about that, but we have a lot of momentum behind this, and the president will have a chance in 2023 to be with all of the Pacific Island leaders. That's yet to be scheduled, but we will get it on the books so that we continue the progress with the Pacific Islands.
I just want to follow up on both those questions. Members of your own administration have said one of the most important things the United States can do to counter China is to show up. And you said these visits are going to be postponed. I mean, are there any dates yet, even date ranges? Because it seems that the partners in the region would like to see a firm commitment to actually show up. So I know this is all very recent, it's only happened in the last 24 hours, but has there been any talk about dates to reschedule these engagements?
I do think there's a kind of remarkable extrapolation from not going to two countries on a particular date to the United States is not showing up in the region, and it's, I think, completely belied by the actual delivery, both of presidential time, of visits, of hosting of major leaders in Washington. Most recently, just in the span of a week, the presidents of both the Philippines and the Republic of Korea. So, I mean, it's not for me to give you advice on or to make a pitch to you on how you report things, but I think there is a degree of fairly dramatic overcranking in saying that pushing off a visit to Australia and PNG speaks to the fundamentals of American diplomacy at this time. The president spoke with Prime Minister Albanese yesterday and agreed that we would get the visit to Australia back on the books. We don't have a date for that, but also that he would host him in Washington for a state visit, which I don't know when the last time the Prime Minister of Australia was hosted for a state visit at the White House, but I think it's been quite a while. So we will see that, and then within this calendar year, you will see the president convening the leaders of the Pacific Islands for a major summit, which will be the second time in 12 months he has done that, which will be the first time ever in history that has happened. So I think a little bit of context is required in the overall thrust of the kind of premise that underlies the last three questions.
You're calling part of it a media narrative, but they're obviously disappointed. So, and no doubt you heard some of that disappointment yesterday from them. Are you concerned about the credibility question, or is the context that you're sharing with us something that you've also shared with them?
I do not believe that the Australians doubt America's commitment to the alliance. And one of the reasons I believe that is because Prime Minister Albanese and President Biden reinforced their common commitment to the alliance yesterday. Another reason I believe that is, like, several weeks ago, a couple months ago, he stood next to the Prime Minister and announced that we were going to provide nuclear-powered submarines to Australia, which is something that they announced back in September of 2021, said in 18 months we'll have this done, and in 17 months and 30 days we deliver on the most consequential, significant security agreement between the U.S. and Australia since the founding of the alliance, bar none. So I think the nature, I think, of these questions does not reflect the nature of how Australia is talking to us about what they think about the alliance.
Papua New Guinea.
And as far as Papua New Guinea is concerned, I think they're obviously disappointed that the president will not be the first ever president of the United States to go to Papua New Guinea. They are eager to see him there at some point. But they are also very mindful of the fact that this president has done more in terms of his personal engagement with the Pacific Islands than any previous president. So one of the things that I think is important to keep in mind is all of the work we do month in, month out, the credibility we put in the bank through our actions, through our summits, through our trips, through the hosting that President Biden does. That credibility is for moments when we have to make schedule adjustments so that the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea and the Prime Minister of Australia can know that Joe Biden is someone who, as president, has their back and that the United States can and will deliver for them. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and we have delivered for both the Pacific Islands and for Australia in an unprecedented way over the course of the past 2.5 years. That puts us in a position to be able to do this, to make these hard calls in balancing domestic imperatives for the president to be at home, to deliver an outcome, a positive outcome, and also to sustain these relationships in a positive way. And I would just argue that all of the gardening, all of the work of the last 2.5 years has led us to a moment where we have the capacity to make these adjustments without it coming at a cost to our credibility, in a way that if we were coming in cold, had not done all the things we have done, people might, the countries themselves might be asking the question more full-throatedly than they are now.
Just to quickly clarify, is the president, when you say he postpones the Australia portion, when he makes that trip, will he also go to Papua New Guinea, or that part is canceled? Because you just said he will not be the first president to make a visit to the island.
No, I just said, I don't know exactly how I formulated it. I'm saying the prime minister is sorry he won't this week be the first president. I wasn't saying he won't go. As we put out yesterday, he's postponed both legs of the trip.